I'm looking to buy a new car. Let's see if this article can help me. Yep. Yep. Let's see if this article can help me. How you guys doing? My name is Hero. This is Coding with Strangers, and I need a new car. Fun story. I drive a very old car, and I'm a very large person. And back in the day when it was cool to have all those super fast cars, I definitely wanted one. I definitely got one. And I've taken great care of it. Dare I say, there's a myth about American cars. American cars are made to be taken care of. And bare minimum. Gas, get your gas, your oil, spark plugs, change the battery here and there. Foreign cars are made to withstand the test of time. So one car is designed for people who actually take care of the car, and another car is designed for people who don't. That's why Americans do so poorly with cars. But it's become apparently clear to me that I don't do as much driving as I want to anymore or need to. The vast majority of my driving revolves around going to the gym, going to the office, and an occasional trip to the city. But I've substituted me driving to the city with taking the train. It's much easier, it's much more convenient. And then finally going to the gym, if I'm keeping it real, it's 4 miles away from my house. I could get my cardio in every day if I got a bike and just rode in. But, there's this thing called snow, and pedestrians be getting fucked up by cars all the day. I'm not doing it. So I'm saying, what's the happy medium here for me? If I do get a new car, I want it very much to be an electric car. I feel like that would be my giving on to the community, doing my part. I'm doing my part. There's definitely drawbacks from that, whether you want to believe that child labor is needed to make those batteries possible, or the insufficient laboring in foreign countries to make the car parts. There's always a downside to everything, and while I'm here talking about all the righteous things, it's no joke, I do not have all the answers. I know, it's hard to believe.
Beta!
Hey, I don't know much about both of the categories, and I feel like a lot of people don't know much about the other side. So let's take a closer look into what's the give and take versus electric versus gas. And I see, so cars are traps, go car free. Going car free in certain places makes perfect sense. If you live within a city where everything is interconnected and walkable, fine. But if your nearest grocery store is 10 miles away, the average distance of a grocery store to residential park in the suburbs of Dallas is 14 miles. You literally can't survive. And public transit there doesn't run efficiently. America was made to be a drivable city. And if you want to talk about why it's like that, you need look no further than racism. Every issue we're experiencing now can almost 110% be drawn back to racism. And it's crazy. But when they were dividing up the cities and trying to figure out how to make people in poor socioeconomic situations suffer the most by keeping their grocery stores out of their areas, they relocated them and put highways to divide them off. Meaning you would have to get onto a highway or go under one or drive over one, more accurately, walk or cross one, which would be more dangerous. So people didn't do it. So the only way to consciously do it was to have a car. I know you're probably chagrining and saying, oh, this. You want me to ruin something else for you? Go look up why the ice cream song is the ice cream song. But I digress. But I want to look at this from a critical standpoint. And I'm starting to look into it. So let's take a closer look from the top, shall we? Electric versus gas cars. Is it cheaper to drive an EV? There are plenty of climate and air quality reasons to buy an electric vehicle, but is it cheaper to drive? While it is a complicated question that has befuddled car shoppers for years, in most cases an EV will indeed be cheaper in the long run. And with automakers slashing prices for EVs in the past year, on top of federal incentives for eligible buyers, you may even be able to score a bargain up front. Let's sort out the details. So this is from March 21st, 2024. And I'm watching this after watching MKHB's video on his solar panels and the Tesla batteries that he got at his house. And it's kind of crazy because I immediately told myself this is a prerequisite, and hopefully they mention that here, but if they don't, we'll even dive into that. Sticker price for electric cars versus gas cars. According to data, Cox Automotive, parent company of Kelley Blue Book, scam site, man. The average price paid for a new EV has fallen significantly. September 2023, it came down from $1,430 over the prior price of $2,800 more than the average paid for a new gas-powered vehicle. And with the EV market growing rapidly, the price margin is expected to shrink even more in the coming years as manufacturers produce more affordable models and improve the battery technology, the most expensive part of an EV. So that's an immediately upfront cost. That one thing I know about, and I noticed that they didn't mention, I don't know if they mentioned it here, but one thing that is significantly a red flag for buying a used electric vehicle is you have to be prepared to change the battery out, which is the most expensive cost. The batteries in these vehicles tend to have a short life cycle in comparisons to the car parts. Most car parts can last easily 20 years. The batteries in those vehicles, as you can probably tell, if you have a 20-year-old car, you definitely don't have a 20-year-old battery. So that's something that has to be changed in gas cars, and they're on a smaller scale. So I'm assuming something that runs fully on them is another thing. You can mitigate some of the costs by making use of the tax incentive, which can shave thousands off of EV price tags. The federal EV tax credit offers $7,500 for new EV and for first time $4,000 for used EVs. Okay, $7,000 off the top, $4,000 on the lot. You've got me titillated with interest. For eligible buyers, the EVs, in addition, new rules for the U.S. Department of Treasury will soon allow participating auto dealers to provide the tax credits directly to consumers at the point of sale, making its savings more immediate. Be sure to also consider adding EV chargers to your home. Okay, so this is actually something I did want to talk about. Charging from a standard 1,200 volt outlet for 8 hours overnight will add about 32 miles of range, which is typically plenty for daily driving needs. 32 miles, 4 and 4, 8, 6, 6, 12, 8, 20. So yeah, I guess my average 12, 30. Down and back is 15, so that's 32. So, I would be a little bit more. It's about 11 miles to my job from where I am. Okay. 2,000 miles. But this, I feel, has to be a prerequisite. If you do get an electric car, you have to own your home. You have to own your home, or you have to have a way of charging your vehicle without interruption. And if you have these battery chargers at your house, a bad decision not to have solar panels attached to it. So a prerequisite for this, and why electric cars probably seem very unappealing to the generation that probably wants them the most, is the prerequisites of having them. In order for you to have an electric vehicle, you have to have a residence or a place to do it. And I don't think apartment complexes are good enough, because apartment complexes house upwards of 400 people. All 400 parking spots do not have electric capability. And if I was to be generous and say 10% of that 400 needed an electric vehicle outlet charge, in most apartment complexes, they are only outfitted for 4, maybe 5. The most I've seen is 10, and that was for a place that housed 600 residents. So the compromise isn't there. The prerequisite, I honestly believe, is you need a home and you need solar panels. MKHB's video does a great job of showing how he is basically getting paid to have these solar panels, and the biggest dividend from his electric panels is his AC unit, which runs on electricity, and charging his vehicle. Those are the two biggest dives in his thing, in the like takeaways from his battery. And he managed to come out in the positive to where he was storing up credit and doesn't have to pay his bill for 3 months into the next cycle. He's building up credit. So that prerequisite alone disqualifies a lot of people from buying an electric car. And I'm okay with this mindset. I think for me personally, for me to buy an electric vehicle, it would have to be attached to a house with my own solar panels so that I can better control that livelihood. Now, if you run into a situation where you can definitely rent a house that has those amenities to it, okay, then you're fine. But the prerequisite to getting an electric car comes with buying a house first, which is kind of crazy, but is the only intuitive way I can think about it. I'm happy they brought this up. Cost of electricity versus gasoline. I think this is a no-brainer. Here is where EV owners win out. Yeah, going electric means you get to skip the pricey trips to the pump, which is one of the biggest draws for making the switch. A 2018 study by the University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute found that the average cost of fuel an electric car was $485 a year compared to $1,117 for a gas-powered vehicle, versus a 2020 Consumers Report similar showed EV drivers tend to spend about 60% less each year on fuel costs compared to drivers of gas-powered cars. And 2023, the nonpartisan policy firm Energy Innovation released a report showing that their savings benefit drivers across the United States. Every EV model is in every state is cheaper to fill than a gas-powered vehicle. So, all in all, I don't think this is up for debate. It's not an argument. It's the impact on the environment, the impact on drivers. And I also remember reading within this article that electric drivers don't drive as much. they live because they, and I don't know if it's subconscious or because they already become conservative people, or the people who need electric vehicles are probably more conservative drivers. They are better at arranging their tasks to make sure that they can get all of their drivings in and all of their tasks in. There's a part of me that can't wait, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I know the technology is out there, but there should be a way for the panels on the roof of the car to absorb sunlight so that there's a constant charge constantly going on. That part, I'm pretty sure there's a reason behind it. Maybe there's some flex on it, but the technology is definitely going to get better. But I immediately thought to myself, well, charging stations would go away if we could figure out a way to put that on top of it. I'm way out of my element, but I'm more than open to understanding what that comes with. Maintenance costs for electric versus gas. This is something interesting because we know that there's a lot of parts in here, and whether or not we want to believe it, say for example Tesla, where the warranty of your vehicle goes out the window if anyone else touches the vehicle. How prepared are third-party markets for electric vehicles, especially with the domestic vehicles, which happen to do surprisingly worse? Well, am I surprised that American-made shit breaks faster? No, I'm not. But also, American consumers are really bad at taking care of their appliances. When was the last? You're saying no or not? When was the last time you cleaned your washing machine or your dishwasher? Before you sit here and fight with some random dude on the internet, go look at your own home appliances. The amount of people that don't know that their furnaces come with air filters, fascinating. I've done pathology samples on air furnaces filters that haven't been changed in 6 years, and everyone's confused why all the kids in the house have asthma. It's because the cigar you smoked from 1986 is still in there. Without spark plugs to replace or oil changes, electric vehicles have a clear leg up on maintenance costs. EV also have the unique feature of regenerative braking, recovering the energy normally lost to braking. What the hell? That's a thing? Which saves the brake pad replacement. Electric cars do still require some basic maintenance, of course, like service checks and tire rotations, but in general, electric vehicles typically cost half as much to maintain. That's interesting. Lifetime cost, EV would always be cheaper on the highway. The net saving range is $7,000 to $11,000. So even on the long range, it's still interesting enough. But we mentioned real quickly, we talked about depreciation of the vehicles, and this is just to hold off on the devices. The car's depreciations are pretty significant. This is a comparison of an electric versus the gas version of the vehicles. The Ford F-150, which is an atrocious vehicle, but the main one has a depreciation of $13,000, while the Lightning has a depreciation of $15,000. The same is going for the foreign vehicles too. So we haven't quite yet figured out how to maximize the potential of electric vehicles. We'll optimize them, we'll make them better. 3-year ownership by comparison as well was pretty significantly. You can't, you won't, and you can only, it seems, and this is where I said the foreign vehicles seem to have us beat when it comes to the ownership cost comparison and things of that nature. For 3 years, they've figured out a way to maximize that cost in their benefit, while we have found a way to make our vehicles less appreciable over time. The tax credits make it significantly more important, but if I was getting down to the nitty gritty and the brass tacks of everything, my thought is quite frankly this: I think having an electric vehicle would be significantly the way to go here. The problem is having an electrical vehicle in America comes with a bunch of prerequisites that a lot of people who want those benefits probably won't even get to experience in their lifetime. I do foresee a future where if enough people get these vehicles, there needs to be a collaboration or a collaboration where people start making incentives to do this. As I was looking at my own house setup, I know exactly where I would put my batteries and set up my thing. And it's not too crazy of an idea for me to think about getting solar, as my 2 houses in Africa have solar panels and my parents live there, and I've lost power 3 times last year in America due to snow and some thunderstorms. But I mean, they have horrible weather there too, and when they lost power, they didn't know about it. And the fact that, I look at my electric bills and think to myself, man, if I could just get some solar panels on this motherfucking house of mine, I think I'd be great. But, you want to make sure it's your house that you're building it to. Also, they can be transferable. They can be moved. I don't think another thing that comes to mind that's going to be a deal breaker probably is where you live. Those solar panels need at least 8 hours of sunlight. And even when you see light outside, a 10% cloud cover could literally cut your power usage in half. Not to speak of cold weather, batteries need an internal core temperature to be warm enough to heat. And I've seen people who have taken the approach of insulating their in-house batteries so that they're maximize their power, but that's just an upcharge cost. If you're used to being able to drive 100 miles with your vehicle and it's cut to 45% because of the weather outside, is too cold outside, that drastically changes how you move in your vehicle. And there's that level of concern about if you're going to be able to do it. Gas-powered vehicles have become incredibly more efficient, and we have hybrid vehicles that could probably gap that loop, but I feel like there is no in between here. You want to go in or you don't want to go in at all. So for me, I think when I sell this property and I'm ready to move on and get my next property, I think the prerequisite for that is going to have solar panels on it, and it's also going to have battery charging station for in-house and for vehicles. That's just another form of independence, and I think seeing as how I can take advantage of a lot of tax credits and get most of this done at no upfront cost to myself for the first year, I think it's worth it. I think it's going to be the groove. It's going to be the change. A lot of those solar panels now look super attractive, and not having to pay gas or an electric bill, changing all your appliance over to electric to usurp that process, I think would be an I. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. You guys have been extra chatty about this. Stop it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Electric, gas, pick your side. May the best man or woman win in the fight. No, I'm not playing. It's not even really a fight. Do whatever you want. All right.